Before the second Transaponian catastrophe, which fundamentally altered the aspect of the terrestrial crust, an old continent existed that now remains submerged within the boisterous waters of the Atlantic Ocean. I am emphatically referring to Atlantis. Innumerable traditions exist everywhere about it. Behold or not, the Atlantean foreign names, or names of barbarian languages, which the cretinous Greeks alluded to when wanting to kill Anaxagoras, who dared to say that the sun was a little bigger than half of Peloponnesus. Names, I say, which were translated into the Egyptian language by the Saific priests and restored into their primary significance by Plato the Divine, in order to later marvelously pour them into the language of Attica. Behold the diamantine thread of the millenary tradition from the Saific priests to Solon, and then continuing with the two Christias and the master Plato. Behold, I tell you, the extraordinary descriptions of botany, geography, zoology, mineralogy, politics, religion, customs, etc., which come from the Atlanteans. Behold as well, with the eyes of a rebel eagle, the veiled illusions of the first divine kings of such an antediluvian old continent. Divine kings who simultaneously have many references in Mediterranean paganism and in very ancient sacred texts from the Oriental world. Behold those astonishing notes of Diodorus Siculus that for us are still material for study, which give a detailed account of those sublime kings. Behold at last, and this is what is most interesting, the similar characteristics of the sacrifice of the sacred cow of Brahmins, Hebrews, Mohammedans, the European Gentiles, and thousands of other populaces. It is unquestionable that our most celebrated and indestructible Taurine circus is in its depth nothing but a very ancient ancestral survival from that Atlantean sacrificial festivity whose description is still found in many archaic secret books. There are, in reality, many legends in the world about the bulls that were released in the temple of Neptune. These animals were not brutally subdued with banderillas and swords, as in these times, but with ropes and other ingenious arts of classic tauromachy. The symbolic beast, already defeated in the sacred bull ring, was immolated in honor to the holy gods of Atlantis, gods who, as the very Neptune, had devolved from the primitive solar state, becoming a people of the lunar type. The classic art of tauromachy is certainly something initiatic and related with the mysterious worship of the sacred cow. Behold the Atlantean bull ring from the temple of Neptune, and the present one. Certainly they are nothing but a living zodiac in which the honorable public are seated as the constellations. The initiator or hierophant is the master, the walking baderilleros are the companions, and the mounted bullfighters are the apprentices. Therefore, the apprentices ride on the horse. In other words, on all the ballast of their untamed body, which falls dead in hard battle. The companions already feel superior, since they are putting the banderillas or the lances into the wild bull, into the animal ego. In other words, they are already, like Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, the persecutors of the secret enemy. The master with the cape of his hierarchy, which signifies the domination over Maya, is the one, as a resemblance to the god Krishna from that old poem, who grasps with his dexterous hand the flaming sword of willpower. He becomes not the persecutor, but the killer of the eye, or the beast, a horrifying, roaring monster which was also seen in Camelot Camelot or Cameloca by the very King Artus, supreme chief of the illustrious Knights of the Round Table. The resplendent Atlantean tauromachy is a profoundly significant royal art, since it teaches us through its brilliant symbolism the hard battle that must lead us to the dissolution of the eye. Any retrospective glance related with Taurine esotericism can indubitably conduce us to mystical discoveries of a transcendental order. As a fact of the present actuality, it is worthy to cite the profound love which the torero feels for the Virgin. It is clear that he totally delivers himself to her before appearing with his sparkling suit in the bull ring. This reminds us of the Aztec mysteries, the terrible sacrifice of the sacred cow and the archaic worship of Io, whose origins have become solemn on our planet Earth since the dawn of life. It becomes thrilling, clear, and defined that truly only Io, Devi Kundalini, the sacred cow of 5 legs, the Divine Mother, possesses that serpentine magical power that permits us to reduce the animal ego, the roaring beast within the ring of existence, to cosmic dust. The vowels Io constitute in themselves the number 10 of generation, and the reason for the circumference of the diameter. Obviously, 10 is then the number of Python, the tremendous masculine-feminine mystery. Io is also the swastika, faux hat, or transcendental sexual electricity, which is represented by the cross within the circle. Symbol of the earth, a theme upon which a book can be written. It is written with letters of fire in the book of life, that such a swastika symbol has existed in all the countries of the earth since the night of the centuries in the form of coordinating mathematics. We need, with entirely undefferable urgency, to convert ourselves into ox herders, in other words, into wise conductors of the sacred cow. The venerable great master HPB really did see an authentic cow with 5 legs in India. This was a real caprice of nature, an immaculate, very white, ineffable miracle. Don Mario Rosso de Luna said that such a unique creature carried the 5th leg on its back, and that with this leg, it scared flies or scratched itself. The curious animal was herded by a young boy from the Sadhu sect. This virgin boy nourished himself exclusively with the milk of this mysterious cow. The esoteric, marvelous, and resplendent symbolism of the cow with 5 legs stands out as obvious and unmistakable. This is a very vivid, manifested expression of the 5 unfoldments of our very particular Divine Mother Kundalini. Let us remember the sign of the infinite, a horizontal 8, which is equal to the number 5, which when read literally is infinite equal to 5. In other words, the infinite is equal to the pentalpha, equal to the ineffable cow with 5 legs, equal to the star of 5 points, or the star irregular pentagon, which stopped Mephistopheles when he came to the bewitching invocation of Dr. Faust. To define these 5 aspects is indispensable for the good of all and each one of our students. The unmanifested Kundalini, ineffable Isis, chaste Diana, wisdom, love, power. The Greek Hekate, the Egyptian Proserpine, the Aztec Coatlicue, the queen of the infernos and death, terror of love and law, the individual particular Mother Nature, the one who created our physical body. The instinctive, elemental female magi, the one who originated our instincts. The ox herder, the conductor of the sacred cow, can and must work in the magisterium with these 5 powers of the pentalpha. Solemnly, emphatically, I declare the following. I directly work with the 5 powers of the sacred cow. To illustrate, clarify, and teach about the pentalpha is an obligation, but I prefer to do it with lived stories. First story. It is said that between the sublime and the ridiculous, there is but one step, and this is axiomatic. You may remember for a moment the Bacchantes when they were in their orgiastic period of rage. These were feminine beauties positively polarized with the Dionysian wave, nymphs of the forests and mountains who were persecuted by the lascivious Sileni. Behold now the ridiculous Maenads, who were negatively polarized with the wave of Dionysus. They were licentious dancers in the rage of their sacred madness, hippie women of ancient Greece. They were feminine prostitutes who were excited by drugs in complete Dionysian inebriation. The human and animal sacrifices were making them even more dangerous. The lustful Maenads were the ones who killed Orpheus, and the marvelous lyre fell upon the floor of the temple and was broken into pieces. Once upon a time, I was narrating to my friends some comic episodes from a bohemian past. Obviously, the fermented fruit of the vineyard and the bacchantes at the breaking point of their orgiastic rage could not be absent in such comicality. These were ridiculous scenes of those ancient times in which I walked as a fallen bodhisattva on this world of Kali Yuga. Nonetheless, starry moments of humanity exist, and a cosmic recollection is truly very necessary. Out of the physical vehicle, in the astral body under the tridimensional zone of Euclid, I had to enter within the subterranean world. What happened afterwards was exceedingly frightful. What I saw in that horrifying submerged zone was the same that was seen by the Hoffmans, the Edgar Poes, the Blavatskys, the Bulwer Lyttons of all days. It was the same as the poet Espronceda portrayed through his demoniacal chorus, as the anguishes of the poet, and as the discordant voices of those who pilot the vessel of life without course, when trusting themselves as madmen to the wind of passions and to the tenebrous sea of doubt in the good work. It was as those who are fatally betrothed with destiny, as those who proudly want to build towers of Babel with their stubborn ambitions, as those who lie, those who combat for mundane glories, those who wallow in the muddy pleasures of orgies, those who covet gold, as the lazy ones who hate the fertile and creative work, as those evil ones, those hypocrites and other victims of the Proteus of egoism. To that end, claws, teeth, horns, snouts, darts, wrasses, soaring wings, tearing rings appeared which were threatening to annihilate me as a vile worm. Many horrifying sounds were heard in those moments through my magical ear. Wailing, howling, whistling, neighing, squeaking, bellowing, gagging, meowing, barking, snorting, snoring, and croaking. Submerged, I was within the mud of so much misery. Anguish possessed me. I was anxiously waiting for a balm to heal my painful heart. The lucubrations of those great seers of the astral who were called alchemists, Kabbalists, occultists, esotericists, yogis, Gnostics, or simply poets, were not in vain. Suddenly, something unusual happened beyond the muddy waters of Acheron. The horrible door that gives access to the abode of Pluto turned upon its hinges of steel. Intensely moved, I shook myself. I foreboded that something amazing had happened. I was not mistaken. I saw her. It was she. The unmanifested Kundalini. She had crossed the threshold where the lost souls abide. Magnificent Madonna, excellent, extraordinary, and terrifically divine, she approached me with a magistral step. I did not know what to do. I was confused. I simultaneously felt fear and love, a cosmic reminder, recrimination. The beloved one spoke with a voice from paradise. She blessed me, and then continued on her way, as if she was going towards the frightful walls of the city of Dis. In those moments, from within the depth of my consciousness, I felt that she wanted also to help the others who dwelled around that city of pain where no one can enter without just indignation. While looking from the high tower of an ardent summit, it is said that Dante saw the three infernal furies who unexpectedly appeared. Those furies had, as is said, movements and limbs of a feminine nature. I instantaneously remembered all of this. I did not want in any way, I, a miserable slug from the mud of the earth, to become another inhabitant of the city of pain. Fortunately, I had the immense joy of being able to depart from within the bottom of the Averno in order to appear in the sunlight. The next day, very early, someone knocked at my door. It was an old professor of secondary schooling. That good person invited me to a graduation party. His daughter had concluded her studies with complete success. It was impossible to decline such an invitation. He was my friend, and I even owed him certain services. In no way was I able to reject him. After all the well-known personal arrangements, little aunties and my insignificant person who does not have any value departed from home with the longing of arriving at the professor's abode. Many very warm and elegantly dressed people welcomed us into the illustrious mansion. Delicious music resounded in the estate. Happy people were coming, going, here, there, and everywhere. Joyfully, the couples danced upon the soft carpet. Many times my splendid host came towards us with the purpose of offering fermented wine. Very closely I saw, time and time again, the resplendent cups of fine baccarat. However, I energetically rejected Bacchus and his orgies. I was remorseful in my heart. My host became caustic, incisive, and even a little offensive. Unquestionably, he was converted into my worst enemy. He mistakenly supposed that I was being ungracious at his party. Later on, he propagated against me diverse defaming lies. He threw against my insignificant person the whole poison of his criticism. Not being happy with all of this, he appealed to public calumny by accusing me before tribunals of justice for certain crimes that until now I am ignorant of. This gentleman of foregone times died a short time later, involved in a disgraceful automobile accident. Today, I think that I certainly acted like any ignorant person would at that party. I lacked diplomacy. There are guests in all the halls of the world who know how to play with the devil. They pass the whole night with one cup in their hand and marvelously defend themselves. Each time when there is a new toast, they show that they are drinking. But in reality, they do not drink. They mock the demon of alcohol. Second story. Let us now go into a very singular new story in which we will not talk of marvelous feasts, neither of Heliogabalian banquets. What a wrested life the one who escapes from mundane strife and follows the concealed path on where have walked the few wise who in the world have lived. Do not be turbid of the chest as the great arrogance condition. Neither of the golden ceiling nest be wondrous, whose construction by the wise Moor is on Jasper's foundation. The hunter Venus, who descends from the high summits with the purpose of helping her son, Aeneas, the Trojan hero who has disembarked on the land of Libya, brings me an unusual remembrance. Isis, Adonia, Tonatsin. The second aspect of my Divine Mother Kundalini came to me more rapidly than the blow of Eurus. She did not have the common face of mortals. Instead, she possessed a beauty impossible to describe with words. She resembled the sister of Phoebus Apollo. I found myself within her very loving, immaculate arms. The beloved one resembled a Mater Dolorosa, like the one of the Christian gospel. I was hungry, and she gave me to eat. Thirsty, and she gave me to drink. Sick, and she healed me. To forget her words is impossible. My son, without me, at the hour of death, you will be completely orphaned. Then she continued, saying, you, without me, would be completely alone in the world. What would your life be without me? Posteriorly, I repeated, certainly, without you, O mother of mine, I would be orphaned. I recognized that in the hour of death, without your presence, I would be very lonely. Life becomes a desert when one has died within oneself. Without the help of our Divine Mother Kundalini, in the whole presence of our being, we would then find ourselves interiorly orphaned. O beloved Mother, you have manifested the prana, electricity, strength, magnetism, cohesion, and gravitation in this universe. You are the divine occult energy within the unknown profundities of each creature. O Mahasarasvati, O Mahalakshmi, you are the ineffable spouse of Shiva, the Holy Spirit. Third story. The legend of the celestial cow, whose milk is ambrosia, life, and immortality, is in no way without solid foundations. We, the adepts, like the divine Gautama or Buddha, conductor of the cow, worked very seriously with the magisterium of the 5 aspects of Devi Kundalini. It greatly pleases us as the Gnostics to nourish ourselves with the apples of gold or of Freya that give immortality to the gods. We joyfully drink the liquor of Soma or biblical manna with which we feel ourselves so invigorated and comforted as in the best moments of our flourishing youth. A certain cosmic, transcendental, divine event comes into my memory in the instant in which I write these lines. Many years ago, it happened on a night of the full moon that I was transported to an extraordinary monastery of the Universal White Fraternity. How happy I felt in that mansion of love. Certainly there is no better pleasure than feeling oneself released in the soul. In those instants, time does not exist, and the past and future are joined within an eternal now. Following my friends through royal chambers and galleries, we arrived at a very refreshing patio which made the one from the Lions of Alhambra look like a miniature. In this enchanting patio, various springing water fountains, as those from the divine water spring of Castalia, murmured amongst flowers that have never been seen or mentioned. However, the best was displayed in the center of the patio, and I contemplated it with the mystical astonishment of a penitent anchorite. I want to emphatically refer to the stone of the truth. This stone had a divine human form. It was the sexual prodigy of the blessed goddess Mother Death, a funereal spectral marvel. It was the 3rd aspect of my Divine Mother Kundalini, a living Petrus sculpture, a tremendous representation of that which greatly frightens the mortals. Plainly speaking, I confess before the divine and before humans that I embraced the terrible Mother Death while in complete Dionysian inebriation. To reconcile myself with the law was indispensable. This was what the brothers of the Order of St. John, those venerable ones who had already performed in themselves the Hyperborean mystery, had said unto me. When concluding that cosmic festival, I then had to reunite myself with some ladies and gentlemen of the Holy Grail in the refectory of the monastery. With much secrecy and great enthusiasm, we, the brothers and sisters, commented about that extraordinary event while dining. Unquestionably, the animated stones, which in ancient Arcadia radically modified the way of thinking of the wise man Pausanias, can be classified into 2 types, Ophite and Siderite, the serpent stone and the star stone. Eusebius especially never separated himself from his Ophites, which he carried in his bosom. He received oracles from them, which were uttered by a small voice that sounded like a fine whistle. Arnobio narrates that whenever he found a stone of this type, he would never stop asking questions, which were answered by a little clear and sharp voice. It seemed to me that Hekate, Proserpine, Coatlicue, within the living animated stone, was emerging from the field of death, or from some tomb of Karnak. 4th story. What the common people know of the reality of shamanism is very little, and even this very little has been adulterated. The same adulteration that has occurred in the rest of the non-Christian religions. Shamanism used to be called, without any right, the paganism of Mongolia, since it is one of the most ancient religions of India. It refers to the cult of the spirit, the belief in the immortality of souls, and that these, beyond death, keep presenting the same characteristics of the human beings whom they were animating here on the earth. This occurred even when their bodies had lost their objective form, when the human being substituted its physical form for the spiritual one because of death. In its present form, such a belief is a sprout from the primitive theurgy and a practical fusion of the visible world with the invisible one. When a foreign person who is naturalized in this country wishes to enter into communication with his invisible brothers, he has to assimilate their nature. That is, he must find these beings by walking half of the way that separates him from them. Then, enriched with an abundant provision of spiritual essence given by them, he then endows them in return with a part of his physical nature in order to place them, through this action, in the condition of being able to sometimes show themselves in their semi-objective form, a form that they ordinarily lack. Such a process is a temporal change of nature, which is commonly called theurgy. Shamans are called sorcerers by vulgar people because it is said that they invoke the spirits of the dead with the goal of exercising necromancy. But true shamanism cannot be judged based on its degenerated ramifications in Siberia, in the same way that the religion of Gautama Buddha cannot be confused with the fetishism of some people in Siam and Burma who call themselves its followers. Unquestionably, theurgical invocations become simpler and more effective when they are magically operated with the physical body totally submerged within the fourth dimension. By walking inwardly and upwardly half of the way, that half which separated us from the beloved brothers, we are able to find ourselves face to face with our beloved dead. Obviously, this whole process becomes easier by walking the totality of the way. Like Iamblichus, we can invoke the holy gods in order to personally talk with them by submerging the physical body within the fourth parallel. Nonetheless, it is clear that we need with extreme urgency a fulcrum point, a lever, which really permits us to jump with the entire physical body into the fourth dimension. Opportunely, it is good to place here that famous phrase of Archimedes, "Give me a lever of support, and I will move the universe." In the 8th chapter of this book, we already spoke with much emphasis about the magical agent of the jinn states. I want to clearly refer to the 4th aspect of Devi Kundalini. This is the lever of support for the 4th dimension. In the moments in which I write these lines, some remembrances, magnificent divine evocations, come into my mind. It happened that in an autumn night, I resolved to drink of the wine of meditation in the cup of perfect concentration. The motive of my meditation was my particular Divine Mother, the 4th aspect of the igneous serpent of our magical powers. To pray is to talk with God, and I talked with the Beloved One, begging her with a silent verb to take me with my physical body to the terrestrial paradise, the 4th dimension. What took place afterwards in that night of mystery was astonishing. Being assisted by the Beloved One, I rose from my bed. When I left my abode and went out to the streets, I could evidence that my physical body had penetrated into the 4th dimension. She took me into the most profound forest of Eden, where the rivers of pure water of life flow with milk and honey. Virgin, lady of wooded summits, everything becomes silent before thee. The non-cultured Iberia, the moody Gallic who challenges even when dying, and the fiery Sicambro who, when finally surrendering his weapons, humbly respects you, beloved Madonna of mine, by the gods who from the high heaven govern the mortals on the earth, I always beseech thine help. The countenance of my mother nature was like a paradisiacal beauty, impossible to describe with human words. Her hair looked like a cascade of gold that deliciously fell upon her alabaster shoulders. Her body was like unto the mythological Venus. Her hands, with very beautiful conical fingers filled with precious gems, had the Christian form. I conversed with the Beloved One in the forest. She told me things that terrestrial beings are not able to comprehend. My mother was resplendently sublime in the ethereal world, in the 4th vertical, in the 4th dimension. If therefore nothing produces alleviation for a painful chest, neither marbles of Phrygia, neither resplendent purpura, it is better for one to seek shelter within the delicious bosom of his particular individual divine Mother Nature. She is the author of our days, the true artificer of our physical body. She was the one that in the human laboratory joined the ovum with the sperm in order for life to have sprouted. She is the creator of the germinal cell with its 48 chromosomes. Without her, the cells of the embryo would not have multiplied. Neither would the cells have formed. Even when suffering surrenders your soul, keep yourself firm, O disciple. Humbly deliver yourself to your mother nature. Fifth story. I want to see in the confines of the terrestrial mansion, the ocean and Thetis, to whom we owe our existence, the loves of Jupiter with the virgin Io, she who was transformed into a celestial female calf, or sacred cow for the Oriental world, in order to escape from the anger of Juno, is something that has very deep significance. Behold here, the first Jupiter of Greek theology, father of all gods, lord of the universe, and brother of Uranus or Uranus, or in other words, the primordial fire and water, because it is known in accordance with the classics that there are more than 300 Jupiters within the Greek pantheon. Jove or Iode. In his other aspect is the male-female HV Jehovah, or the collective androgyny of Elohim from the books of Moses, the Adam Kadmon of the Kabbalists, the Iacho or Inako of Anatolia, who is also Dionysus, whose vibratory wave has become very intense with the entrance of the sun into the brilliant constellation of Aquarius. Jesus, the great Kabir, never surrendered cult to the anthropomorphic Jehovah of the Jewish multitudes. The law of retaliation, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, from the avenger Jehovah, was overcome by the law of love. Ye love one another as I have loved you. If we scrutinize with mystical enthusiasm the sacred scriptures, we can clearly verify the unmistakable and evident fact that the anthropomorphic Hebraic Jehovah does not appear in any of the four Gospels. Ram Io, Mary, the Divine Mother Kundalini, always accompanied the Beloved One, and we see her at the foot of the cross on the Mount of the Skulls. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, uttered the divine Rabbi of Galilee from the majestic summits of Calvary. Unquestionably, the blessed Lord of Perfections only worshipped his Father who is in secret, and his Divine Mother Kundalini. In other words, we will state, the great Kabir Jesus profoundly loved Chepthai Iod Heve, the divine interior male-female. Why Iod is certainly the particular individual monad of each one of us. The Hindustani Shiva, the Arch-Hierophant and Arch-Magi, the first begotten of creation, the golden fleece, the treasury which we must take hold of after defeating the dragon of darkness. Heve is the unfolding of Iod. Heve is the divine wife of Shiva. She is our individual mother Kundalini, the sacred cow with 5 legs, the esoteric mystery of the Pentalpha. Jupiter and his cow of Io3 keep in exact concomitance with HVI Iod Hev, the interior divine couple of each creature. We have studied 4 aspects of the sacred cow of Io. Let us now continue with the 5th mystery. There are transcendent and transcendental cosmic intervals on the esoteric path. I had to pass through one of those intervals after having entered into the temple of the twice-born. I want to refer in an emphatic manner to a period of sexual suspension, to a period of sexual abstention which endured for several years. During this interim, I dedicated myself with absolute exclusivity to profound interior meditation. The objective of this meditation was to dissolve the psychological I, the myself, the itself, the one which is certainly a knot within the cosmic energy, a thickness that we must reduce to cosmic dust. It seemed fundamental to me to comprehend each one of my psychological defects in an integral manner, but I wanted to proceed a little further in the path of meditation. Comprehension is not everything. We need to capture the deep significance of that which we had comprehended with maximum expedited urgency. Any devotee of the royal path may have given himself the luxury of comprehending a psychological defect in all of the territories of the mind. Nonetheless, he still may not have achieved the capture of its deep significance. By trying to comprehend my own defects in all of the bends of the mind, I resolved to become an enemy to myself. Each defect was studied in separate and in a very ordinate way. I never committed the error of trying to hunt 10 hares at the same time. I did not want in any way to expose myself to failure. The meditation became exhaustive. It became more and more profound. And when I was feeling dismayed, I left the mind in quietude and in silence, as if waiting for some revelation. The truth came in those instants. I captured that which is not of time, the deep significance of the comprehended defects, in an integral manner. Afterwards, I prayed with vehemence, beseeching, begging my Divine Mother Kundalini for the elimination from my mind of the psychological aggregate, the psychological defect in question. Thus, little by little, with this didactic, with this modus operandi, I achieved the elimination of 50% of those subjective infrahuman elements that we carry inside and that constitute the ego, the I, during that sexual pause. However, it is evident that everything in life has a limit. There are scales and scales, degrees and degrees. This work became frightfully difficult when I had to confront more ancient infrahuman elements. Unquestionably, my Divine Mother required far more superior weapons. I remembered the lance of Eros, the marvelous emblem of transcendental sexuality, but I was in a pause. What could I do? Nonetheless, a cosmic desideratum had already been delivered unto me, and a certain categorical command was demanding me to descend again to the flaming forge of Vulcan. Sex, but I had not comprehended. I had been transported to the mountains of mystery. I had seen those terrible forces of the great arcanum in action. I fought in vain against the categorical commands of the Dionysian wave. Certainly they were frightfully divine, omnipotent. These supernatural powers looked like an apocalyptic hecatomb. It felt as if those forces could make the earth jump into pieces. When I wanted to explore, investigate, inquire about the origin of such sexual powers and forces, I found myself face to face with the elemental female magi, with my Divine Mother Kundalini in her 5th aspect. Certainly I had seen her. She was the size of a gnome or pygmy, very small and very beautiful. She was dressed with a white tunic and a long black cape that she was dragging on the floor. Her head was covered with a very special magical cornet. Beside one of the 2 symbolic columns of occult masonry, the beloved one had commanded me to a new descent into the 9th sphere. Sex. Disgracefully, I had believed that it was related with some ordeal. Therefore, I continued in disobedience. Certainly, I was slow in comprehension, and this was stagnating me. While struggling for some time in mortal fights against a certain very infrahuman psychic aggregate that violently resisted its elimination, I appealed to the lance of Longinus. I did not have another solution. I appealed to the sexual transcendental electricity. I beseeched my Divine Mother Kundalini during the metaphysical copulation. I eagerly begged her to grasp the lance of Eros. The result was extraordinary. My sacred mother, armed with the holy pike, with the divine spear, with the sexual electric power, could then reduce the horrifying monster, the psychic aggregate, which I was in vain trying to dissolve without the chemical coitus, to cosmic dust. Thus, this was how I abandoned my sexual pause and returned to the forge of the Cyclops. By working with the holy spear, I achieved the reduction of all of the infrahuman elements that constitute the I to cosmic dust. The 5th aspect of Devi Kundalini grants us sexual potency, the natural instinctive force, etc.,